When you find real peace within yourself, you stop moving to the rhythm of everyone else's chaos. You become an unshakable presence, a steady force that refuses to be pulled into drama or confusion. And the moment you step into that kind of calm, you begin to expose something most people don't want to look at. You show them the storms they've been ignoring inside their own hearts. You shine a light on the places they've been unwilling to heal. Your peace becomes a mirror reflecting everything they're trying to escape. That's why some people can't stand it. It's not because you've done something wrong, it's because you've done something right. You've chosen to stop participating in cycles that kept you small. You've chosen to let go of resentment, to forgive what tried to break you, and to breathe instead of react. And when you do that, you remove the distractions they use to avoid their own discomfort. They can't project their frustration onto you anymore because you won't pick it up. You won't carry what doesn't belong to you. Your calmness becomes undeniable proof that there is another way to live, that there is a path beyond fear and insecurity. And that truth is uncomfortable for people who have built their entire identity around conflict. They look at you and see what's possible if they would only slow down, turn inward, and face their wounds. But many would rather stay distracted. They would rather stay angry. They would rather stay in the familiar prison of their chaos than step into the unknown of healing. Your peace makes them realize they are not entitled to your energy. They are not entitled to a reaction. They are not entitled to keep pulling you into their drama just because that's how it has always been. When you stop responding the way you used to, when you stop letting their chaos dictate your choices, you disrupt the dynamic that once gave them power. And that disruption feels like rejection, like loss, like exposure. Sometimes your stillness feels like an insult to their ego, because your quiet says, I don't need this anymore. Your calm says, I've outgrown this cycle. Your peace says, I'm not available for dysfunction. Your peace says, I'm not available for dysfunction. Those are statements some people are not ready to hear, so they'll criticize you. They'll accuse you of being cold, distant, arrogant. They'll say, you've changed, as if that's a bad thing. But you have changed. You've decided to protect your mind and spirit. You've decided to walk away from unnecessary battles, and that's something to be proud of. Remember this, you are not responsible for the discomfort your growth causes in others. You are only responsible for the integrity of your own soul. If your peace exposes their chaos, let it, because your life was never meant to be a hiding place for other people's turmoil. There comes a point when you stop letting people pull your strings, when you stop being so quick to defend yourself, to explain yourself, or to argue just to prove a point. And when you do, something powerful happens. They lose their grip, because the truth is they can't manipulate what they can't agitate. Manipulation depends on stirring you up, getting you emotional, pulling you into a place where you're no longer thinking clearly. It depends on you reacting without pausing, without breathing, without seeing the bigger picture. But the moment you stop giving them that reaction, the game falls apart. See, some people aren't looking for resolution. They're looking for control. And control only works when they can get inside your head, when they can make you doubt yourself, when they can get you to question your worth or your choices. So they'll push your buttons, they'll bring up your past, they'll twist your words, all in an effort to pull you out of your peace. Because as long as you're tangled in their drama, as long as you're chasing after their approval or defending yourself against their accusations, they feel powerful. But the moment you stay calm, the moment you stop reacting, the moment you look at them with clarity and choose silence over shouting, you take that power back. They can't stand that. Because when you refuse to be agitated, you force them to face themselves. You force them to deal with the emptiness behind their attempts to control. They see that you're no longer available for their games, and that terrifies them. In this book, the main cast, held by the father, the son, and the daughter, seeks adventure. But they see that you're no longer available for their games, and that terrifies them. Because for so long, your reactions kept their tactics alive. Your anger fed their need for attention. Your frustration made them feel important. But when you stop playing, they're left with nothing to manipulate. They're left with themselves, and that's the one person they've been running from. So they'll try harder at first. They'll poke at you in new ways. They'll test your boundaries. They'll try to find a crack in your calm. But don't let them in. Stay steady, stay grounded. Remember that your strength isn't in how loud you speak or how hard you fight. It's in how well you can hold your peace. That's what breaks the cycle. That's what ends the game. And that's what sets you free. There is a deep power in being unbothered, in knowing who you are so fully that no one else's chaos can shake you. And once you taste that kind of peace, you'll never want to go back. You can ask a question of someone and tell them everything. But once you taste that kind of peace, you'll never want to go back. Because you'll realize that manipulation only works on the parts of you that are still unsure of your worth. And when you know your worth, no one can use your emotions against you. And that's what I mean by the discussion in the book set, that you no longer look at pain as a weakness, but as an asset for peace and purpose and beauty. That's what builds resilience. And that becomes the key major ingredient that creates. There's something about your stillness that makes certain people deeply uncomfortable. It's not because you've done anything to them. It's because your refusal to be rattled challenges their ego in ways they can't quite articulate. When you remain calm, when you refuse to compete with their noise or match their drama, you show them that all the shouting, all the posturing, all the desperate need to be seen isn't necessary. And for someone whose identity is built on proving themselves, that realization feels like an attack. They're used to measuring worth by how loudly they can talk over everyone else, by how quickly they can win an argument, by how much attention they can command in the room. But your stillness is proof that real strength doesn't need an audience. That truth unsettles them because it forces them to question everything they've relied on to feel valuable. They see you sitting there, unmoved, unbothered, unwilling to participate in the tug of war, and it makes them wonder if maybe all their efforts to impress or dominate have been empty. People with fragile egos need constant reassurance that they matter. They need the conflict, the back and forth, the chaos, because that's where they feel significant. And when you don't engage, when you don't rise to their bait, you deny them the validation they crave. You're showing them a mirror that reflects the insecurity they've been trying so hard to hide. And for many, it's easier to blame you for being cold or arrogant than to admit they don't feel whole without the noise. But your stillness isn't arrogance. It's maturity. It's a decision to stop feeding your energy into proving points that don't need proving. It's a commitment to peace over pride, to clarity over chaos. And that threatens anyone who needs your reaction to feel like they're in control. They'll try to provoke you. They'll accuse you of thinking you're better than everyone else. They'll try to make you feel guilty for not playing the game. But you don't have to play. You don't have to shrink to make someone else comfortable in their insecurity. Your calm is not an insult. It's a boundary. It's you saying, I will not lose myself to satisfy someone else's need for conflict. It's you choosing your own self-respect over the illusion of victory. And in time you'll see that the people who can handle your stillness are the ones who have done the work to find their own. Because those who are secure in who they are don't need to compete with your peace. They respect it. They're inspired by it. And they learn to find it in themselves. The more you honor that stillness, the more you'll realize it's not your job to soothe anyone's ego at the expense of your own soul. It's only the solitude that moves the mantle to prove to me that man was meant for solitude. And when you choose calm over chaos, you start to see things and people for what they really are. Your stillness gives you the clarity to recognize the illusions others have carefully constructed, often for years. Some folks build their entire identity on being needed, being feared, or being admired. They wear masks so convincingly that even they start to believe them. But when you stop reacting, when you refuse to be pulled into their emotional storms, those masks start to slip. Your calm dismantles the stories they've told themselves to feel powerful, important, or superior. You see, a lot of manipulation thrives in confusion. It survives in environments where no one pauses long enough to question motives. When you're constantly on edge, you don't have the bandwidth to notice the inconsistencies. You're too busy defending yourself, trying to be understood, trying to keep the peace. But the moment you stop doing all that, when you simply stand still and observe, it becomes obvious who's genuine and who's performing. It becomes clear who's showing you love and who's using affection as leverage. People who depend on those illusions will accuse you of changing. They'll say you've become distant or detached. But what's really happening is that you've stopped buying what they're selling. Your discernment makes them uncomfortable because it means you can't be as easily manipulated. You can't be guilted into overextending yourself or tricked into carrying responsibilities that were never yours. And without your confusion to hide behind, their intentions stand naked in the light of your awareness. Calm doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself to stay grounded in truth. It means you're willing to see reality, even when it's uncomfortable. When you operate from that place of quiet observation, you begin to understand why some people create constant drama. It's a distraction from their own emptiness. If they can keep you busy with their fires, you'll never notice that they're the ones holding the match. The more you refuse to be reactive, the more you'll find that some relationships simply dissolve. Not because you pushed anyone away, but because your peace requires honesty, and not everyone can live without their illusions. They need the performance. They need the audience. They need the adrenaline rush of being in control. And when you don't participate, you take away the stage they've been performing on for so long. It can feel lonely when the fog lifts and you see people clearly, but it's also liberating, and you see what you really are. It was a feeling when the fog lifts and you see people clearly, but it's also liberating, and you see what you really are. It was a feeling when the fog lifts and you see people clearly, but it's also liberating, and you see people free. Harry, because you no longer have to question your instincts or doubt your perception. You know who you are, and you know what you're looking at. That truth is a gift, even if it costs you some company along the way. Your calm doesn't just protect your spirit. It reveals the truth everyone else is trying to avoid. There's something powerful about a person who can stand in their own truth without needing validation from anyone. When you find that place inside yourself where you're no longer controlled by fear, shame, or the need to prove your worth, you become a living example of freedom. And that's what unsettles some people the most. You remind them of the life they wish they had the courage to create. You represent the freedom they secretly crave but don't believe they're allowed to have. Most people are running from something. They're running from the past, from old wounds, from the idea that they're not good enough. So they keep themselves busy chasing approval, busy staying in relationships that drain them, busy trying to be everything to everyone except themselves. And then you come along and you're just free. Not perfect, not immune to struggle, but free in the sense that you don't need the noise to feel alive. You don't need the chaos to feel important. You've learned to be at peace with who you are. That quiet confidence can feel like a threat to someone who's still shackled to their own insecurities. They look at you and wonder why they can't do the same, why they can't set the boundary, why they can't walk away from the dysfunction, why they can't stop caring what everyone thinks. But rather than face those hard questions, it's easier to project resentment onto you. It's easier to label you as selfish or detached than it is to admit they're afraid of stepping into the unknown. Freedom isn't something you can give to someone else. It's something they have to claim for themselves. And sometimes your example is the spark that makes them realize they're living in a prison with the door wide open. They just haven't been willing to walk out. Your peace exposes the ways they've settled. Your joy highlights the compromises they keep making. And your contentment makes them question why they still believe they need to be in pain to prove they care. But you can't shrink yourself to make them comfortable. You can't dim your light to protect them from their own self-doubt. You were not put here to participate in their limitations. You were created to live fully and honestly, no matter how it challenges other people. And in time, some of them may decide to join you on the other side of fear. They may see your example and finally believe that freedom is possible for them too. Until then, you have to keep walking your own path. Keep standing in your truth. Keep honoring the peace you fought so hard to create. Because your life is proof that there is another way to exist, one that doesn't require constant struggle, one that doesn't revolve around pleasing others, one that allows you to breathe without apology. Your freedom will always challenge those who have yet to claim their own, but that's no reason to give it up. There are people who live their entire lives repeating the same destructive cycles without ever questioning them. And then they provoke, manipulate, and drain everyone around them because that's the only way they know how to feel significant. Chaos becomes their comfort zone. And the moment you choose a different way of showing up, your presence interrupts everything they've relied on to keep those patterns going. You see, dysfunction needs willing participants. It needs someone to argue back, someone to chase after, someone to react with hurt or anger. When you step out of that dance, when you stand calm and grounded, you break the rhythm they're used to. They can't play the same old games because you're no longer handing them the script. And that disruption can feel like rejection to them. It can feel like you're abandoning them, when really, you're just refusing to abandon yourself. Your refusal to engage doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about your own well-being to stop letting their patterns dictate your peace. You care enough to say, this ends here. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is to stop enabling the cycle. Because when you won't respond the way you used to, you force people to face themselves. Without your reactions to distract them, they have no choice but to look in the mirror and confront the part of them that keeps recreating the same chaos. It can feel uncomfortable to be that mirror. It can feel lonely to be the one who says, "I'm not doing this anymore." But every time you hold your ground, you make it clear that you will not be a prop in someone else's drama. You show them that your energy is not up for grabs, that your heart isn't something they get to manipulate to soothe their own fear. Some will try harder to pull you back in. They'll escalate. They'll test your boundaries to see if you really mean it. And in those moments, your steady presence is more powerful than any argument. Because peace is not passive. It's an active declaration that you've decided to stop participating in what hurts you. It's a choice to protect your spirit instead of proving your point. Over time, your consistency will teach people that you can love them without losing yourself, that you can care without caving in, and that you are not available for patterns that cost you your health, your joy, or your clarity. Let the pain fill you with grace so that you can care without caving in, and that you are not available for patterns that cost you your health, your joy, or your clarity. In the final release, your pain can fill your purpose so that you can care without caving in, and that you are not available for patterns that cost you your health, your joy, or your clarity. In the final release, your presence becomes the interruption that invites them to grow. It becomes the evidence that life doesn't have to be a constant battlefield. And maybe, just maybe, your example will inspire them to choose something different for themselves. Until then, keep showing up, steady, grounded, and clear, because your peace is the reminder that the cycle can end with you.